Okay, guys. So, um, just before talking about Samuel Beckett and the theater of the absurd and his major play that was Waiting for Godot, it's necessary for me to tell you something about the development of drama in the 20th century after the war, because you know, in England, drama has always had a great tradition since you know, morality plays, Shakespeare, and the great Elizabethan drama. We get to many developments of it until what we have to study now. We have to finish our year talking about Samuel Beckett and his theater of the absurd. On page 342, 343, as you can see in your book, we have these two pages. Now I'm going to tell you something, the most important points of these different types of theater, and then we'll get to talk about Beckett in details. As we said, as I told you, Thomas Beckett belongs to that group of writers that can be defined writers of the theater of the absurd, play writers. The theater of the absurd, we can say, that begins after the Second World War as a rejection of traditional values and traditional drama. As you can understand from the definition, theater of the absurd in itself is not a type of traditional theater. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, we can say that started this, is the starting point of the absurd drama. It was performed first in Paris in 1953 and then in London in 1955. The term absurd was applied by one of the dramatists that followed this type of theater, that wrote this way, and the writer was Eugene Ionesco. There was a Romanian play writer, and another dramatist that we can say belongs to this group is a Russian Artur Adamov. The point is, though, that they didn't actually form a group working together. They didn't work together. They didn't form a school because each of them had a different background, historical, political, social, and different roots. But the three of them independently developed a type of drama that was very similar to the others. Eugenio Ionesco defined this drama absurd because it was a type of drama that, in his opinion, in his view, had no purpose, no objective, no scope. It had no metaphysical, religious, or transcendental roots. And in this type of drama, we can assist to a description of man as a lost being. The actions seem senseless, absurd, and useless. This is what the definition applied by Ionesco to his drama. What does it mean? It means that on stage, we assist to a type of drama where there is no apparent setting, very empty. The stage is empty. There are just minimal scenery and objects, and just to underline this sense of lack of place, of time, of action. Okay, this sense of metaphysical anguish, which is given by what is void, without anything. We can say that the theater of the absurd is very, very important because it started a tradition of experimental theater in England with writers like Harold Pinter and Tom Stoppard. These dramatists continued this kind of very special theater where they don't argue, they don't speak, they don't explain with words the absurdity of the human condition. They just present its situations on the stage. So, in the theater of the absurd, the language doesn't have a, such an important role as in traditional theater. In fact, here your book says that theater of the absurd tends to debase the language because what happens on the stage goes beyond, sometimes contradicts, the words spoken by the characters. Pauses, silences, miming, farcical situations are also very common. There isn't a real story, there isn't a plot, there isn't something that happens on stage, there isn't an action. Everything seems to reflect a sense of anguish, a sense of nightmares, a dream. Time and place are vague. There aren't recognizable characters. And even the dialogue, your book says, often consists of incoherent babbling, which means balbettio. So this is Samuel Beckett's theater that we're going to study more in depth and in details. Other currents developed in this period after the Second World War are the group of angry young men with the so-called theater of anger, with a writer called John Osborne that in his play Look Back in Anger tried to give an open criticism to the society and to the politics of his period. He's an anti-hero, he's a working class anti-hero, and he's a rebel. He became the spokesman of a frustrated generation. They wanted to speak the raw language of real people. The raw language of real people means that for the first time in theater, the protagonists, the characters they don't speak an elevated language, but they tend to speak a very colloquial language in a very angry way. That's why the group of playwrights after John Osborne were defined angry young men. Another group of drama that developed was the kitchen sink drama, again based on working class heroes and the working class idioms. And we also have to speak about the socialist theater. Socialist theater that, as you can understand, developed after the war and with the aim of protesting and giving voice to socialist ideas, also thanks to the abolition of theater censorship of 1968. So, in 1968, censorship was abolished in drama, so playwrights had the freedom to say what they wanted. In particular, in the 19th, for example, under the influence of the great revolutionary movements of 1968 and the 70s, or rebellion against the Vietnam War or the political events of this period, we can say that the writers of this period didn't have a traditional audience, but they addressed an elite of committed politicians, people politically committed, also not in the official West End, in the great official theatres of London, but in the small theatres, in basements, in attics, in the back rooms of pubs, very small theatres that were called fringe theatres. All these, unfortunately, went slowly to an end at the end of the 70s with the beginning of conservatism, the conservative government of Margaret Thatcher and its development, historical and political development. Just something else I want to say about the theater of the absurd, that it's connected to the philosophy of existentialism. There was a philosophical movement whose representatives were the Danish philosopher Kierkegaard, the German thinker Heidegger, and the French intellectuals Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. These this philosophy developed especially after the Second World War, followed the Holocaust, and it based its themes on this idea of freedom, responsibility, alienation, death, that we can say are the themes of the theater of the absurd and of the Beat Generation. But in any way, we can say that the closest cultural relationship to the theater of the absurd was definitely the philosophy of existentialism. That's all, guys. This is the background to Samuel Beckett's plays, and I'm going to stop now.